Hi there, guys. My name is Charly Cameron, and here's my story. So I'll just tell you a little bit about where I grew up. When I was a little kid, I lived in the old town Pattonsburg, and my house went under in the Great Flood of '93. So then I moved here to Cameron, and I've been here ever since. So I became bound up by addiction at a really young age. I didn't come from a broken home. I didn't have a bad home life. As a matter of fact, I had a really, really good home life. But I had a rebellious spirit about me that just kind of took over at a young age. And in my teen years, I did play sports and I excelled in everything. And I guess the best I can tell you is that I had a rebellious spirit about me that just kind of followed me. And I started running with the wrong crowd and getting into the wrong things. And so by the time I was 15 years old, I was drinking, smoking, and having sex. By the time I was 16, I was smoking weed. And by the time I was 18, I was doing everything, you name it: cocaine, meth, ecstasy, acid, shrooms, whatever I could get my hands on. So by the time I was 20, I was sticking a needle in my arm. Shortly after I started using, I did too much in somebody's bathroom and I flopped on their floor. And that would have been the first time that God saved me from death, because he had a better plan for me. By the time I was 21, I had met the father of my children, who also was an intravenous user, and I had my first kid with him when I was 22, and the last one by the time I was 27. And I put my kids second to my addiction all throughout that relationship and all throughout their infancy. 6 years into a toxic relationship, I wanted something different. So I left the father of my children. I went back to school. I started doing better, but I just replaced meth with alcohol, and it became my new meth. Then I met what is now my ex-husband when I was 28. We got married when I was 31 and was divorced by the time I was 32. And when we went through that divorce, I decided I was going to relapse on meth. So I violated my probation, did all that stuff. My parents ended up with my kids, and I ended up in the county jail. Not for the first time, but the first time for an extended period of time. And while I was there, I had some anxiety, and somebody had some anxiety pills, and I decided I was going to take their pills, but they gave me the wrong pills, and I ended up flopping on the floor in the county jail. And the second time, God saved me from death. So I went back to drinking, smoking, shooting dope, smoking weed, living on the streets, not knowing where I was going to end up. You know, sometimes it was a sidewalk. You know, sometimes I'd get lucky and I'd be on somebody's couch. But I didn't really care. And during that time, I was diagnosed with hepatitis C. I lost all relationship with my children, my parents. And so I just wandered lost for those years, and I just decided I was going to accept being a failure. So I decided that at some point there, I wanted something different, so I checked myself into a teen challenge, which is a really good rehab, and I'm sure that all of you guys have heard about it. But while I was there, I was supposed to be there for 13 months, and I ended up leaving 8 days into it and took off with nothing but the shirt on my back and my Bible in Ozark, Missouri, so I was 4 hours away from home. But in that 8 days that I was there, I do remember saying the sinner's prayer and dropping to my knees and really feeling different, like it was different. I always thought that I had Jesus in my heart, but I really felt different this time. And so for whatever reason, I left that place and I ended up, like I said, just taking off on foot. And something kept telling me just to keep walking, even though I couldn't figure out why I was doing what I was doing. But God showed up in so many ways, and I ended up on a bridge, and I was going to jump off that bridge. And I remember yelling at God, and I said, "If you're real, you'll show yourself now." And then there was this voice, and it was like, "Don't do that." But it wasn't God. It was a guy who saved me from jumping off that bridge in a truck, right? But I know that God sent that guy, and he stopped all the traffic behind me, and he let me in his truck, and he took me to a bus station where I was able to phone a friend and get a bus ticket to come back home. And then they told me that I wasn't going to be able to stay there, that my bus wasn't supposed to leave until like 5:30 the next afternoon. And they told me that I wasn't be able to stay there at the bus station because they weren't open all night because they closed at midnight. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I'm 4 hours away from home, and what am I going to do with this time? And what am I going to do from the time they close tonight until 5:30 the next day? So that happened. Well, at 11:45, the phone rang in the bus station, and something had happened to the bus that was on the way to pick up the people that were there waiting on them. So they had a policy where they had to keep their bus station open all night. So there, God showed up there. Not only that, like, people fed me while I was there. God sent people from places to feed me. He took care of me, and he got me back to where I was I guess I was going to come back to Cameron for whatever reason, I didn't know. But in the end, when I got back, some things were revealed to me that really needed to be revealed to me that I was kind of in the dark about, that were pretty detrimental to my life. So that's the best reason I can think of. However, like I said, I did get saved during that time and I did feel different. So, I do believe that I really at that time had accepted Jesus into my heart. However, I wasn't strong enough in my walk and I came back to the same people and the same crowds that I had left. And so I ended up going back and continuing to use. At the end of 2021, I moved to Maryville, Missouri, and I did regain some stability. I did slow down, almost completely quit meth, but not quite all the way yet. And I continued to drink a lot. And the person that I was living there with was just a friend, and it turned into more, but it didn't work out because we couldn't seem to get on the same page. So I decided one week I was gonna take off and I was gonna go party it up and, get a hold of anything I could and, go see my kids in this weekend too, because you can do that, just, that's double-minded stuff. And so I ended up getting pulled over on February 6th of 2022, where I was taken to jail. And I spent my 38th birthday in jail. But during that time, I had a real, I spent hours in repentance. I spent hours in the shower because it's the only place that I could go to be by myself. But I repented for all the things that I'd done. And I knew that it was going to be different. And I could just feel, I could feel God. I could feel God all over me. March 8th of 2022, I was released from that jail. I went back to Maryville to live with my friend. That it wasn't working out, but we were doing better. I was going to try to work it out. But then I just kind of started putting God first, and I started waking up every morning, and I started reading my Bible, and I started a prayer life that I'd never had before, and I was consistent with this. And so I finally, decided that I had to leave there. And me and that person parted on good terms. I'm forever grateful for them. Had they not gave me a place to stay, I may not have gotten back on my feet and gotten back to where I was. So I went and I got a hotel room, and I was going to stay in that hotel room for a couple days while I was getting my stuff packed up instead of trying to drive back and forth, because my mom and dad agreed to let me come back home. And in that hotel room, I remember dropping to my knees and praising God like I had never done before, because though I thought my life was falling apart and I was going to be back starting from scratch, honestly, He had already started opening up doors. I had already started coming back home to see my kids on the weekends. I had already started that relationship slowly with my kids. I was going back to church. So really, He was opening up doors, and He was starting a new chapter in my life that is the chapter that I'm in now. And so in June of 2022, like I said, my parents did agree to let me come back home. In December of 2023, I was cured of my hepatitis C. On February 6, 2024, I celebrated 2 years sober. And on February 16th, I turned 40. So God restored everything that I had lost. Every prayer I prayed during those hours of repentance were answered. And today, I have an amazing relationship with my kids and my parents. I am redeemed, I'm restored, I'm delivered, I'm set free from an addiction that had me bound up for over half my life, and all the glory goes to God. He saved me from death, He saved my soul from hell, and He gave me salvation through His Son, Jesus Christ.